So his point is, and it makes sense. He works in the tech industry. He works in with SpaceX and things like that, Tesla. Um, those companies have tons of engineers that work for them. And so he knows that type of position well. And he obviously is coming from a place of a person who has hired countless Americans to work at his companies. So for him to say something like this, his opinion is likely based on experience from working and running these companies and hiring engineers and understanding where some of the best talent may come from, which countries. So that's his opinion. The opposite side of the argument, as far as I can tell, was that other people who are conservatives and pro-America first are saying that um, there's a lot of loopholes with the H-1B visa, which I totally believe is true because anything the government gets involved in, they usually end up creating more problems than they solve. And a lot of times there's all kinds of backdoors built into things so that I won't necessarily say corruption, but so that it gives them wiggle room to uh, maneuver things how they want for negotiations in the future. So a lot of things that the government creates, very few things are ironclad because they always want to leave room to move things based on what they need done politically for that time. So there's probably a lot of flaws with the H-1B visa. I'm going to say that right away. Um, but the argument from the American First conservatives is that they feel that Americans should get all the jobs or the jobs first, and those jobs should not go to um, people from other countries who are likely going to be hired for cheap labor. Like I said, I totally agree that the system is flawed because the government's running it, and just about anything they do is flawed. They probably should have like third party corporations involved, but it gets into a gray area because now their goal is going to be making a profit. So maybe that would get in the way of doing the best thing or the right thing. But it definitely seems true that there's probably corruption that goes on. I've even heard people say like there are recruiters that get kickbacks for bringing in these people, so they almost kind of like traffic them into a degree. Not really. They want to fly and come to the country, but they will use and abuse them, the applicants, in order for them to make a profit. So there's definitely a lot of fraud that goes on in it, and there's definitely a lot of flaws in the system. But Elon Musk's point is that we should focus on bringing in only the best talent, which is a very small number from other countries, and fill, I believe, positions or roles that are empty, not take jobs from American citizens. Now, if that's not the case, and he's looking to take jobs from Americans and give it to foreign people for cheap labor, then yeah, that's wrong. That's not what the H-1B visa was designed to do. It was designed to give an opportunity to people in other countries to have a path to citizenship in America by having the opportunity to work in our country and learn and grow, and then either go back to their country and do great things with that knowledge to hopefully help build up their own country so that more countries could be like America, or to stay and become a citizen and continue to benefit this nation. So that was the original intent of the H-1B visa. Now, I agree with both sides. I do, because I think that Elon and Vivek and some of the other people that made comments about this, they have a point. There's a lot of people who specifically came into America on these visas, um, specifically CEOs, people who are entrepreneurs who started businesses. Um, they came to America on these visas, gave them an opportunity, and they ended up multiplying that um, by creating businesses and giving Americans jobs. So the immigrant is coming to America and then building jobs for Americans, that benefit is way greater than not bringing that immigrant in and just giving that job to an American. If you give that job to an American, one American gets a job. But if you give an immigrant that job and they come and they eventually build a business and then turn it into a business where they have like 1,000 American employees, you just gave 1,000 Americans a job when the decision was between giving one American a job or 1,000 Americans a job. So one other thing I want to make note of, which I find very interesting, is that Donald Trump's inauguration is on January 20th, this Monday, which is also Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And Martin Luther King Jr. gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech um, in Washington, D.C., I believe the Lincoln Memorial. And it was like 1963, if I'm not mistaken. And he spoke a lot about freedom. And so I kind of find it ironic that it's going full circle because a lot of times people associate his speech with um, being about uh, race and specifically tailored to Black people. But if you actually read his speech, it talks a lot about America and freedom and everybody, getting along and being one, uh, children of God, one, American populace, one group of citizens that are maybe indistinguishable visually, but spiritually and patriotically uh, in line, in agreement. So let's take a quick look at that now. He says right here, with this faith, we will be able to work together, pray together, to struggle together. For some reason he says go to jail together, but I think it's because back then they segregated the prisons into blacks only and white only prisons, to climb up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing, land where my father died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. Now, if you've watched previous videos, you know that I've talked a little bit about pilgrims and the Puritans and that whole movement back then, and how America was founded, even before it was America, as a Christian nation. It was ordained by God. And the Puritans, the pilgrims, they're the ones that started that whole migration here uh, to seek religious freedom. And that was one of the biggest, most important things, and basically the main reason they left behind the number one nation in world history, Great Britain, and came to a barren land of undeveloped, nothing was really here. It was just the American Indians, and they had very few structures, very few things developed. But there really was not much going on, not much innovation. They really just lived off of the land. And so they left everything behind, came here and started literally from scratch. But uh, in this speech, he talks about, um, freedom and God and, you know, the land of the Pilgrim's Pride, right? What they had come here for, to be a Christian nation. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. And it goes on to say other things. And then it says, when we let freedom ring, when we let it ring from every tenement, when we let freedom ring from every state, every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, Black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. And if you've never heard that famous speech, that's a famous line, that final line, as well as I Have a Dream. But he talks about all people getting together and being united, which is what we were, which is what America's supposed to be, the United States of America, right? Um, but it's funny because Trump brought a lot of people together. And I don't know if you've seen these different groups for Trump. He's had every different type of group for Trump. He's had blacks for Trump. He's had Latinos for Trump. Jews for Trump, even gays for Trump, like many different types of people who are, uh, you know, groups that have declared like they're for, Trump, and they're all united under this MAGA movement, this MAGA party. And it's interesting because Martin Luther King Jr. had envisioned that, and here it is on his day that is dedicated to him, Trump, who brought a lot of that and brought people back together and united the country, even though many said he divided it. He really united it in many ways, and brought a lot of people into the Republican Party that the Republicans have not been able to do for a very long time, for many, many decades. Brought all these different types of people from different backgrounds to vote Republican for this one man. And here he is giving his speech on Martin Luther King Day at his inauguration this coming Monday.
Sugar is bad for humans, but not because of why you think it's bad for humans. When you strip sugar, which is sucrose, right? Sucrose is a disaccharide of glucose and fructose. When you strip that out of a fruit or out of honey, for instance, you are removing it from a very complex food matrix full of hundreds, if not thousands of other chemicals. And your body doesn't know what to do with pure sucrose. And the problem with pure sucrose is not that it raises your blood sugar. The problem with pure sucrose is that it causes overgrowth of the wrong type of bacteria in your gut, because all of these other hundreds, if not thousands of chemicals that are in a banana or an orange or a strawberry or a blueberry or a raw organic honey actually temper the negative effects of sugar in your body. They prevent overgrowth of bacteria in your gut. So whole foods are things that humans have been eating for hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, and he's making a great point about this. This is one of the biggest chemicals or, ingredients that they've put in food over the last several decades that has really hurt the human body and caused the obesity epidemic is high fructose corn syrup. Now, fructose comes from fruit, obviously. It's basically the, sugar component of fruit. But the thing is, they extract it from the fruit and then put it into um, different products to, uh, you know, make you addicted to that product because um, human beings crave sugar, right? Our brains and our insulin receptors get wired to crave sugar. So the more that you eat it, the more you'll crave it and the more addicted that you get to it. But the body wasn't made to have just, sugar isolated by itself. You need a fiber to break down that sugar and make sure that it's properly digested through your body. Um, each fruit has specific fibers to break down the specific fructose that's in that fruit. That's why when you eat fruit, the fructose in the fruit doesn't bother you and it doesn't make you obese, right? You've probably never met somebody that was a fruitarian, let's say, and only ate fruit for their diet that was obese, even though all they're eating is um, a food item that's loaded in sugar, high in carbs, and low in, protein and fats because they are not consuming it by itself. It's not isolated. So the body understands how to break it down uh, with the fibers that specifically come in that fruit that assist that fructose, right? That's why you can eat fruit and be fine, be healthy, and not have a sugar rush and not, have issues with your insulin. Fruit is very good for you. It's also loaded with a lot of other, healthy, naturally occurring things like antioxidants and things like that, vitamins. So we're not supposed to remove those things, but the food scientists do that. They break down the food, they reverse engineer it, and then they take ingredients from the food, isolate things that they know affect the human brain in a certain way, and then scrap the rest. And then they take those things and they put them in products to hopefully make them taste delicious and get your brain addicted to them so that you can continue to buy their products and be a repeat customer. It's how they ensure their profits and the growth of their company. And that could be seen as manipulative in some instances. It could also be seen as a business strategy, where you're just figuring out how to get people to continue to buy your products. But the important part is the disclosure. they have to disclose it to you. That's why they put food labels, nutrition facts on food products now, because they understand that people do this, that companies do this, and that's not the issue. It's the disclosure to the people that are buying it. They have to let you know what is in the product so that you can decide whether or not you want to put that in your body, right? So that's where all this came from, where they started mandating that companies have to put nutritional facts on their food products. It's on there, but it's typically in the scientific term for that, that vitamin or item, whatever it is, ingredient that's in the food. Like that's why a lot of times you'll see these big words, and then in parentheses next to it, it'll say like vitamin B, and you don't know that that's the name for that version of vitamin B, but that's the technical term for it. Um, so I'm not saying that you have to spend your life, researching every single ingredient in every single food item you buy, but it is good to be aware of what you're putting in your body. And they're telling you it's on the nutritional facts. So it's there for you to see. It's a matter of whether or not you're going to do it based on how much you care about your health. But it's a great point that he's making. So let's continue. Let's take a look at Ohio, Cincinnati. There's a place that stands out right here called Silver Creek's Mystic Treats. And they likely sell very similar things. They don't have a website, so I can't click on it, but they call themselves a health and beauty shop. Here's another one, Mystic Rose. They do have a website. Probably take a look and see if they sell that type of stuff. But here's another thing. This is just an overview, so it looks like there's only a few sprinkled here and there. If you zoom in and click search this area, they'll actually show you more results that pop up that weren't there before. And the closer you zoom in, the more results you'll get that weren't there before. See? They just keep popping up. Mystic Life. And right from the cover photo, you can see jewelry, crystals. They have a shop as well. You could click on that, but just from the photo alone, we can see they sell similar things, right? Now, that's just, you know, Cincinnati, Dayton, Ohio. We did Kentucky. Okay, let's go somewhere else. Go somewhere a little bit more popular, especially today. And many conservative people live in Nashville, Tennessee. I bet many of them don't even know how many of these places are right under their nose. There you go. Just clicked on it, zoomed in. This is Nashville, Tennessee. You got a place right here. The Mystical Heart, Spiritual Center. And that's another key buzzword they use. They'll say spiritual because they try to throw you off and think that it has something to do with God. Well, it does. It's an abomination to God. And you could actually go to their website and see. I've never been to this website. I have no idea, but I just know how all these places work. So again, they call themselves a spiritual center right away. Candles, divination, they're openly admitting that. Essential oils, that's another thing. A lot of times they'll sell herbs or essential oils or incense. That's another big one. You got to be careful where you buy these things from, because if it's coming from a place like this, it's likely got occultic ties, jewelry, and stones. Many of these places sell the same type of stuff because it's all tied to the occult. So you have a crystal store right here. They are admitting right out of the gates that they sell crystals. Zoom in a little closer. All right, let's jump down to Florida. Now, we know Miami. That's a big city that seems to practice a lot of hedonistic behavior. So we're not going to be too surprised by what we see there. But just from a quick Google search, there you go. Whole bunch of places. Mystic, Parapsychic Shop, Mystic Crystals. It's all right in the name. Mystic Joint, Botanica, Mystic Magic Crystals. Again, crystals, but with the word magic in there. Magic is the practice of sorcerers and witches and things like that. That's all magic. Well, we've accepted that today because you see a lot of magicians, do illusions, which are not evil. They're just a way to distract and then do something while you weren't looking. If anything, that would be more like lying, but it's not inherently evil to do illusions. But we've accepted the word magic associated with that. And so now magic is normalized. So when we see it, we don't think it's bad because we associate it with it like a magician at a kid's party, right? Over here in Tampa, got a bunch of these right here. Mystic smoke. Some of these do tattoos, sacred crystals right here. Ravens, moon, Diana, mystic. Wow, they're really going. Of the dark. So Diana is one of the evil goddesses. I think her symbol is a half like crescent moon, but that is a flat out, that's basically like admitting straight up Satanism. Um, got Diana's moon and mystic of the dark. I mean, it doesn't get much darker than that, but that's in Tampa. So you have a lot of these places spread across the country. Let's do like Alabama. Many people may think, oh, that's just big cities, that are filled with a bunch of people. It's not the small town America. Well, I could show you Alabama, Mystic Cards and Games. Let's just click on that. Mystical Treasures Emporium. Now, this is just an overview. I don't know what each one of these sells, and I'm sure not every single one sells everything that I said was bad, but they do exist, and they are in every single state. This is Georgia. Here you go. It was passed on August 14th, 1935. Okay. And you were 65 years old. You would have had to have been born in the year 1870. Okay. So let's do the math on that. If you were born August 14th, 1870, today, February 25th, 2025, you would have been 154 years old, 6 months, 11 days. Okay, so 154 years old, right? So now that might make some sense if you're saying they never took those people out of the system. They were put in originally when Social Security was first founded, and they never took them out of the system. They're still in there, and we may or may not be sending money to them. Okay, well, take a look at the tweet from, or whatever, post from Elon on X in this age bracket. So you're 154, we said, right? There's 1.3 million people that fall into that category, which means either we didn't take out 1.3 million people from the time Social Security started. We never took them out of the system. We never updated the system, cleaned them out, or moved them from still alive to dead. So there's a possibility 1.3 million people are still receiving Social Security checks from the government from the original group of people that were part of Social Security when it started. Okay. That's a huge problem. It's different if it was like this number down here, 866. We forgot there's 866 people that were still left in here somehow. We didn't, I don't know. We didn't know it. There's been hundreds of millions of people that lived in America since then. We just didn't catch it. Our mistake. How do you not catch 1.3 million people, right? Which this means you're not auditing your system every year or every 5 years or every 10 years. It's been 154 years that you've been alive, and then you were in the system for the last almost 100 years now, because now we're about 10 years away from when the Social Security Act was actually put into place. So 90 years, we never caught 1.3 million people that have already died and moved them over in the system. But that's, again, another level, another layer of this. It gets worse. So take a look at some of these numbers. They are much higher than that. If you were 65 when Social Security started, you would have made the cut. You might actually be in the system. At best, you were 100 at that time, which would you draw from it for, 5 years before you died? Average life expectancy back then was 60 years old. You'd have to have lived, another 40 years past that age, which was even rarer than it is today. There's a lot more knowledge and information that we have with health and science today, so people are able to live longer. Back then they didn't know all that stuff. They did a lot of things, to hurt their health, so they lived a lot less, long as we do now. Um, Over here, you're like 65. Over here, you're like 75, 85, 95, 105. This is about the furthest you can go, this bracket, to where people would have been in the system at all. Okay. So this is probably the oldest number age bracket that you would have possibly made the cut to get into the Social Security system. Okay. If you were about 100 years old, you made it in, even if you got one check and died, you would have still technically, legitimately made it into the Social Security system during that time, because you would have been about 100 in 1935, 37, when you were set up in the system and you are technically documented on the books. Anybody from the 200 year to 209 year age bracket and down, it's impossible for them to have made it in the system. Okay. These are people that never existed ever, because they would have been older than 100. So first thing that's best to do, I think, is to take a look at the Ten Commandments. Take a look at the most important things that God says we have to live by, and see how many of these things you're not living by. Now, a lot of people just assume if they don't murder or steal that they're following the Ten Commandments. I think that's where we are today as a culture, where as long as you don't kill anybody, you're not a bad person and you're going to heaven. But that's not the reality. God gives a list of things that he says are important to him, that we adhere to them. So let's take a look at these now. Everybody always knows, talks about the Ten Commandments, and we know them from, just life in general, growing up. Maybe if you went to Sunday school or grew up in a religious home, you would know the Ten Commandments. But I think a lot of people today don't actually know all 10. A lot of people today just know, like I said, one or two that sound familiar, and they just kind of assume that they're following all of them. So what we're taking a look at here is Exodus 20. This is the New International Version on BibleGateway.com, but you can look at whatever version works best for you in whatever Bible. This one's just easy to read. I don't even read this version. I read the New King James Version or the Geneva Bible, but not everybody likes that type of um, language. It's a little bit difficult for some people to read. So, the New International Version is a good one. It's nice and clean. But it says right there, God spoke these words. I am Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. Now that's first commandment. We all know that one. That's very popular. It's also one of the most broken commandments today. Many people put many things before God. It's not just worshiping other gods. It's not just worshiping like Egyptians worship, like, mythical gods, or Greeks and the Romans. It's making anything or anyone more important to you than God. That is putting another God before God. You're making, if you have to choose between God and anything else in your life, and you can think of something that comes before God, that's your God. And you're putting that before God. So that is putting another God before God, which would be breaking the first commandment. Shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven, above, or on the earth, beneath, or in the waters below. And then it goes all into that. But that's basically um, the idea of that, is basically the idea of making an image of God. Now, I think a lot of people um, have mixed opinions on this. Some people say that's why you shouldn't wear, a cross, or, sometimes you'll have like a little pendant where it's like a representation of Jesus or his face or his body hanging on the cross. And you'll see this sometimes in churches, you'll see it sometimes on jewelry. And there's debate about that. That's not really um, definitive that every Christian denomination agrees on what that is. But it doesn't say specifically name Jesus as Christ or the Messiah, in case they didn't want to say who, would be the Messiah. It specifically says God, which I take to mean the God in heaven, not who we know as Christians and Catholics as, God, the man Jesus who walked the earth. And I have yet to see anybody really do a depiction of God, but that would be hard because you'd have to have seen him first. Um, People make representations of God what they believe and things like that, but you don't really see people um walking around with merchandise of God because it's kind of hard to create an image of God that you have not physically seen with your own two eyes. But that's one that is sort of up for some debate today. So this is the actual document. Report from Iron Mountain on the possibility and desirability of peace. Now that's another key thing that the government does. They do this with a lot of bills that they pass. They'll name the bill the opposite of what it actually is, right? Like the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act is one of the most worst bills that have ever been put in place, acts or whatever, where the government actually stripped the American people of more of their rights than ever before. So it was the most unpatriotic thing ever, but they call it Patriot Act. And they do this a lot in government where they intentionally name, bills, um, opposite of what it is on purpose to trick the people into thinking, because a lot of times that's what people do. They go to a website, read an article. They don't read the article. They just read the title. And in their mind, they, just read the title and they made up their mind about that situation, regardless of having never read the article itself. So this is what they were calling it because the idea was if we can get the guns from the people, we will have peace and we're going to sell them on peace by if we can take your guns, there'll be no more wars, and therefore there'll be peace. But what, the people who don't understand how this works is guns have not always existed, right? But people have been killing each other since the beginning of time. War has always existed. So there's no way to eradicate war by taking away weapons. It does not work. People will still kill each other with anything. I think what Cain killed Abel with a rock. Goliath, David killed Goliath with a slingshot and a rock. You know, People will always find a way to murder each other if they so choose to, especially nowadays, like with, modern mixed martial art techniques and stuff. You could kill somebody with your bare hands, and the average person could actually do it now. So it's not like we need weapons to kill each other, but taking weapons away will not solve the problem of war. Governments are the ones that start wars. The people don't start wars. No American is getting on a boat and sailing to China and storming their country and fighting them in hand-to-hand combat. A government sets up the war, gets the people, recruits them, and then ships them off to go fight that war on the politician's behalf. Taking away the guns will not solve that problem. The problem gets solved when the people, stand up against the government and say, no, we're not fighting in those wars. We don't want war. We want peace, and we're going to keep our guns and have peace anyway. So this whole thing about, peace is the lie. It's the cover. It's the front. It's the way to sell people. And if you notice over the last 20 years, you've had so many more people, especially young people in college and stuff, being brainwashed into believing that gun control is a good idea. And we've kind of gone down that slope significantly anyway with, firearm licenses and national databases that you have to register your gun and this and that. It's not like we're completely free, but at the same time, we still have the weapons to be able to defend ourselves. So um, there's at least that fail safe. But this is the report here. It's an interesting report. If you ever get the chance to read it, you could probably just search the name of the report and PDF on online, and you should be able to find the report for yourself to read it. But this is a legitimate study that they did where they really analyzed every situation and how it could turn out for the government that's trying to control the people if they disarm the people, and what would that look like? And so we'll just go into a little bit of it right now just to get an idea. But I want to start with the introduction. So this is kind of the writer who wrote this. He wrote the sort of like an intro explaining the situation and how the people got to this place. Early in August of 1963, he responded to a call from Washington to serve on a commission of the highest importance. Its objective was to determine accurately and realistically the nature of the problems that would confront the United States in if and when a condition of permanent peace, in quotes, should arrive, and to draft a program for dealing with this contingency. The unique procedures that were to govern the Commission's work were expected to extend its scope far beyond that of any previous examination of these problems. So, allegedly they had done studies on this beforehand, but this was supposed to be like a really conclusive one to figure out how to go from here. So it was a special study group, an interagency committee, and if you look, this was, allegedly this event happened at Iron Mountain in New York, in Hudson, New York, and it was actually published. This was published in New York. Now we'll take a look at a few things here. This was published in 1967. So this goes back to the Kennedy era, right? The meeting place itself, Iron Mountain, location near the town of Hudson. So this was, again, like I said, this was done in Iron Mountain near Hudson, New York. And this was even published in New York. And we went on Iron Mountain's website, and they have a location that's right outside of Hudson, New York. So it makes sense that that's probably the location that this took place at. But this is the gist of what they say. Behind their qualified academic language runs this general argument: war fills certain functions essential to the stability of our society until other ways of filling them are developed. The war system must be maintained and improved in effectiveness. So they're admitting that there is a system, a war system in place, and that uh, the government needs to not only maintain it, but improve upon it. So again, when the Special Study Group was established in August 1963, its members were instructed to govern their deliberations in accordance with the principal criteria. Briefly stated, they were these: military style objectivity, avoidance of preconceived value assumptions, inclusion of all relevant areas of theory and data. Now, you don't have to be a type of person that is obsessed with money and only cares about being rich in order to set your family up in that way. There's been plenty of people who have become rich, made plenty of money, passed it on to their children, and their children carry on the legacy in a good and wholesome and godly way too. It's what you do with it that matters, not the fact that you just have a lot of money and you're rich. So there is a way to become rich and live a nice, lavish lifestyle without being corrupted by the world. As long as you're doing the right things, passing on your beliefs in God, your relationship with God, and your morals and values to your children, the money is just a bonus. It's just a way for you to live a better quality of lifestyle and be able to do more for your neighbor who you're supposed to love as yourself. So that's the path that I would lay out for the younger generation, people in their 20s. Go out there, get your life experiences, get your work experiences, develop your character. And this is important for men specifically because during your 20s, you're going to develop your character and you're going to determine who you are as a man. And then you're going to attract the right type of woman that will fit with your character versus going out in the world, living a life, randomly hooking up with a girl, and then falling for her, even if you don't believe in the same things, you don't share the same ideologies or philosophy about life, and you have completely different personalities, but you found them attractive. That's not a good reason to be with somebody. That's why it's always been done, especially with the Christian philosophy, is to wait until marriage to have intimate relationships with the person that you're with, because it allows you to get to know them as a person first and then decide if this is someone you could spend the rest of your life with, regardless of the sex. That's so important. And this is something that is completely being not even just neglected, but destroyed by Gen Z because they're being very promiscuous and it's going to ruin them in the future. Very, very bad. There's going to be a lot of negative repercussions that come with having a lot of partners, having a lot of sexual partners. That's not good. And it's not going to help you or your future success in life. It's actually only going to hurt you. So you want to try and get away from that. Focus on working, focus on developing yourself as a person, and also giving back to the world, doing what you can to contribute in whatever ways you can. Then finding the right person that you can share a life with and see yourself sharing a life with. That's where you get to start the phase of your life in your 30s where you get to build a family with that person. And now you know going into it, well, I am who I am, they are who they are, and I like them for who they are, regardless of the sex. So we're going to build a great life together. Now, there's more to that, your 50s and 60s, but we don't need to get into that now. This is just specifically for people in their 20s, to focus on, because I think a lot of young people are lost right now and don't know what to do or where to begin. So I'm hoping that this will help set you up at least on the path to start. Last thing I want to talk about is when you do start a business or take on a job, approach everything with quality. Put quality into everything. You want to do your best work regardless of if people appreciate you, regardless of if they acknowledge you, and regardless of if they um, immediately compensate you for what you think you're worth. Do your best all the time, always in everything. Give everything 100% all the time. Don't waste your time, feeling like a victim, being upset that no one's appreciating you, and a whole host of other things. Just give your best and your all. And I promise you, the right people will find you and you will find them. And they will appreciate you for who you are. But if you're only going to give your best to people who accept and acknowledge that that is your best and they appreciate you for it, you're going to have a very hard time finding people who do. And it's only going to be even harder for you to be motivated to get back into that rhythm where you do give 100%. So give 100% all the time. Approach every situation as, how do I do my best and how do I beat my previous best? How do I do better than I was yesterday? You should always be exceeding, always be growing, always be getting better and better with every day. Life is a growth trajectory, not a path where you just coast and run out the clock and rush home to, watch TV or play video games. You want to constantly be growing. There'll be time for entertainment. There'll be time for hanging out with your friends. There'll be time for doing all kinds of leisure activities, taking vacations and doing things like that. But give your all in everything you do, and you will have a better life. And so many opportunities will open up for you along the way. Take chances, take risks, especially while you're young, because you can bounce back, but you're going to learn so much from them. But give everything your all. Give 100% quality, and I guarantee you will have a better life than if you didn't. So there's just a few tips for the younger generation. I hope this message finds you well. I hope it helps you. I hope that if you're lost and you don't know where to begin, I hope that it sets you up on the right path where now you at least have a starting point of goals to go after. But that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And put in the comments if you agreed with any of this stuff, disagreed with it. Either way, it's fine. It's all welcome here. Let me know if any of this has been a positive impact to you. And if you do end up, implementing it in your life, come back and put it in the comments or message me and let me know this has had a positive effect and it worked for you. But that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next one. So then that doesn't mean the footstool Earth is flat, right? He's making it a point. He's saying that heaven belongs to him. It's his throne. It's his kingdom, right? And Earth is his footstool. We are there like servants to serve the Lord. That's what that means. It's got nothing to do with the earth being flat. And again, this is not me arguing, trying to make the case that every single theory that the flat earthers have is wrong. This is not me, using scientific studies and proving that the earth is not flat or the earth is round. I'm just trying to come from an approach where we don't get so caught up in theories being facts and so married to them that there's absolutely no room for something to have been misinterpreted by either the flat earth community or the round earth community, either way. But based on what the Bible says, and it says much, much more on this, I'm not going to go through every single thing today. And I especially won't do it because I highly recommend you go do your own research, read the Bible, take a look at what it says. You can even search these things I was just using Bible Gateway, but there's also, I think, Bible.info. There's some other Bible websites where you can literally search the Bible for certain verses talking about certain topics you could search for the firmament, you could search for the vault, you could search for heaven, hell, whatever it is you're looking for, you can search for those things to help you cut to the chase. And then if you want to go read the whole, passage about that in the Bible, that might be a great way to get more people into the Bible, and actually looking at it and reading it for real versus just, using it as a resource to prove your conspiracy theories. But I just want to quickly show you the model that I came up with as to what I think it's more realistically like, and it's based on the Bible. But again, this is not a perfect depiction. ChatGPT, like I said, the AI is not there yet. It's not that good. So essentially, the idea is hell is inside the core of the earth. We've been taught that it's the mantle and the core and that it's molten lava, but the Bible explains it as hell is at the core of the earth, and you go all the way down to the core itself, and that's the pit, that whole situation. So it's more likely that hell is inside the round globe Earth at the very core, underneath the ground we walk on. And there's been a lot of, things that kind of back that up. But what's more realistic is that the firmament is probably a big force field, whatever it is, whatever it's made up of, it's a different element from the rest of, what's in heaven versus earth. And all of the universe is probably inside of the firmament, not outside. So this stuff is wrong from what ChatGPT gave me. But all the planets, all the stars are probably inside of the firmament. And this could be light years wide. We have no idea, right? We're trying to make it as though the firmament is this thin shield, a little like piece of glass around the flat Earth's top. It's probably not. It's probably a billion times bigger than the Earth itself in terms of the circumference of it, and the Earth is inside of it. But what's more important is that what the real makeup is probably heaven is all around the firmament in every direction, and the Earth is the center point of heaven. The Earth is, some people understand it based on the way the Bible's written, as it's the first heaven, and that's probably more likely true. But also it would make sense that we are the center of heaven, the focal point, because it's explained that God is always looking at us. If you're the center, the focal point, then that would be the direction you would be if everybody's looking at you. The people in heaven, the angels, everybody working for Team God is looking constantly and guiding the people of earth. So we're probably the focal point. We're probably the center of heaven, where God's resting place is now. But heaven is probably all around us. It's probably not just above us like in this depiction. It's probably all around the firmament on the outer side of it. And then all the universe, all the stars and everything is inside the firmament around the earth. That's why we really don't know where the space ends. Space probably ends at the firmament where heaven begins. That probably makes the most amount of sense. And tell me if you disagree. That's fine. Put it in the comments. But to me, it makes more sense that we have every single thing in the universe inside of the firmament on the outside of Earth. And then all of heaven is outside of the firmament on the other side, because that's how it's written in the Bible. So to me, this makes the most amount of sense. Again, not a perfect depiction, not impressed by AI right now. If you can do a better version, a better model, free to use. It's not mine. I didn't create the heavens and the earth. God did. So if you can do a better model and either post that in the comments, share it with us, or, keep it for yourself or share it on the internet for free, that's, you can do whatever you want. I don't own this. I didn't create it. God did. But I just think this makes more sense. It's probably more likely the earth is round. It's probably likely that hell is in the core of the earth, and then everything in the universe is contained right outside the earth, in between the firmament and Earth. The firmament is probably not right on the outside of Earth, separating us from space. I think all that stuff is inside. I think the firmament separates us from heaven because that is how it's written in the Bible. Tell us about some of the most like coolest or like interesting problems that you've had to solve when a customer calls you to house, and it could be anything from like a leak or like something else, but like what are some of the most interesting stories you can think of like a problem that you guys had to figure out and you were able to solve it?
God, there's so many. That's the thing. Cross connections. Those are some of the toughest calls in the world.
So
They could
explain
take
what that
days.
is.
That's when you are opening up the best way I could describe it is you open up a faucet, it's cold water, and then all of a sudden you get hot water, and then cold water, and then hot water, and then cold water, and you can't understand why this is happening. So something somewhere in your house is mixing. It's mixing hot and cold, mixing hot and cold. And that you could be on those calls for sometimes a day or two trying to figure out where it's happening, because it could be happening in a faucet somewhere on the other side of the house that has no relevance to where the problem is. You know what I mean?
Because it's
Those are some of the
connected at
calls
some
that drive
level.
me crazy. What's
And
that?
because it's connected at some level,
It's yep, everything's
it's
connected
causing
together
yeah,
in a plumbing system. So it
right.
causes like we were doing one once. I was at a Jewish lady's house, and in really religious Jewish homes, they have two kitchens. Okay, they have the regular kitchen, then they have the kosher kitchen, and
Mm.
they're almost identical kitchens. Everything's the same. So she was getting a mix in her faucet in the kitchen. It would start off lukewarm, then it would come scalding hot, and then it would get really cold all within 30 seconds. And trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Do we have a bad cartridge? Do we have this? Do we have that? Looking for hours and hours and hours, going in the basement, feeling pipes to see where it's mixing. Like, is it mixing here? Is it mixing here? It was a bad cartridge on a shower valve on the other side of the house that was causing that problem in the kitchen. You know, that's
Okay.
where you run into it, and experience makes you look at things like that. But when you're inexperienced in a situation like that, it could take hours, if not a day or two, to solve an issue like that.
Now can it be fun, kinda like being a detective for a day where there's a problem and you gotta challenge yourself to see if you crack the code and figure it out?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, it is, and then there's a sense of it's a good feeling when you do figure it out. You're like, oh, and then stuff starts to make sense in your head. You're like, oh man, why didn't I think of that? What the hell? Why didn't I think of that in the beginning? You know
Right,
what I
right.
mean? What's not fun is when you can't figure it out within that time span, and then you have your boss breathing down your neck. You know, Jesus Christ, I got you pay this. I'm not paying you to go back out there, stuff like that. That's what's the not so fun part of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because every time you go out, you gotta get paid, but you didn't solve the problem yet, so you're not getting paid. The company's not getting paid yet.
The company's not getting paid yet, and when you work for a company, that's bottom line is the bottom dollar. That's how it goes.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's how it
Um
goes.
So you get to see, which is cool because you do a lot of residential. So you go to people's homes, you get to see a lot of like the ways that different people live. You get to probably have some cool interactions, meeting people and getting to see all walks of life, like you said, and tell like one or two really cool stories or funny stories about experiences that you had that you like, it just made you appreciate the job.
Oh man, yeah. I'll tell you one that really got me. I was doing a job, okay, for this Middle Eastern family, okay, and we had to replace a bunch of drain pipe. And as I'm working, the old lady comes downstairs. I guess it was a grandmother, mother, father, son, whole family. Comes downstairs and she tells me to stop working. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So she goes, come upstairs. I said, okay. So I went upstairs. I'm with my helper at the time. And I walk in and their family sitting down in the kitchen. Okay. And they have this absolutely giant spread of food on the table. Okay. And I'm sitting there like, what's going on right now? And they were like, please sit down and eat with us. I was like, I don't know if I could do that. I'm working, but they insisted, that's their culture. Where they come from, when somebody comes to help them, to do something for them, they feed you. So that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? You get a lot of that. Like people, they invite you into their culture. You know what I mean? We sat down, and I'll tell you what. Besides one person that spoke English, nobody else spoke English at that table. But we all sat down and broke bread together, and it was a great experience. And then you get the not so good experiences, like
Well, for this first one, how was the food?
oh, it was excellent, man. It's
Yeah,
excellent,
and
but it's
what
different
type of
than the
food
way
was
we
it?
do it. Oh, they had eggs and all kinds of fruit and all kinds of there was just a spread of so many different things, you know? This was years ago, man, and their culture food, whatever they make, and I think they were Iraqi, the family.
It's funny how it's affecting each generation a little differently. Like the boomers, a lot of them are retired now, so they have a lot of time on their hands and they're spending it getting caught up in these rabbit holes on social media
Oh
and
God,
wasting
yeah.
so much time believing in all this nonsense that doesn't matter when they don't have as much time left as the other generations. You would think they would take whatever is left of their life and spend it with their children or grandchildren or maybe doing the next phase of their life, enjoying the
Travel.
retirement, traveling with their spouse or
You know,
doing that little business they always wanted to do, whatever it is, right? You would
take
think
a
that,
cruise around the world. Go do something.
yeah, but it's funny how it's actually affecting all these generations. Yeah, you have people who are retired and people who are in high school, and they're all being caught up and sucked into these conspiracies.
And it's literally touching, I think, for the first time in, I wouldn't say history, but I think it's touching all levels of life.
Hmm.
Because like 20 years ago, if you believed in a conspiracy, you wore a tinfoil hat, you were nuts, you're crazy. You lock yourself in your room all day long and you put a tinfoil hat on your head, and now it's just everywhere, and it's touching every generation. Because, like you said, personally know people in that generation who have retired and just hit the friggin' books heavy about the conspiracy theories and everything, and investing a lot of their time into it. My father's one of them. He's not retired, but he's at that age now where he's starting to get curious about this stuff. And "Hey, Anthony, did you know this?" And yeah, all right, Dad, knew about that 15 years ago. You know, like where were you?
Boomers are always so far behind everybody.
Oh God, so far behind everybody. Like they just now are starting to come out and believe that 9/11 wasn't actually a terrorist attack. I'm not trying to get into that though.
No,
I'm
I know,
just
but it's
saying.
like 25 years old.
25 years later, and they're like, "Oh, well, finally, we realized that the buildings can't possibly come down like that with a plane hitting them. It makes sense now, but 25 years ago, I didn't believe it because it was a jet fuel. Yeah, it was a jet fuel.
Yeah. No, it's funny. It's so true. Well, yeah, that
So
was
true.
that. For that topic, I just was, wanted to hear your take on that, but it's it's definitely becoming a problem in society, and it's only going to get worse with AI and things like that because you're seeing so many of
Definitely.
these AI videos come out now where they're making full like movie scenes about things that are not true, did not happen, and people are commenting and sharing them and saying, "You see this, you see that," and it's like the whole thing's fake. It's the whole thing is created AI generated. You
And
know,
people really hop onto it. Like, right now, the number one country song in the United States of America is an AI generated country song.
so funny. Yeah,
How crazy is that? We're
yeah.
screwed as a
No, we're not
society.
screwed, but it's definitely not good for people who are not trying to always continue to learn and grow and better themselves. And that's the thing too with like conspiracies. It's almost like you're tricking yourself into thinking that you're learning and educating yourself, but you're what you're learning is empty, right? It's meaningless. It's like going to, school to get a degree in like, you know, I don't know, art history or something like that. There's so few people that are actually going to use that skill in real life because there's so few jobs that fit that. It's sort of like that where you're learning a lot of information, so you are getting smarter, but the information's useless, you know? So like it depends on what you're learning and what you're educating yourself on that matters, right? You could
Very
learn a
true.
lot of things that are useless. So
And
you
what is
did
that
learn,
ultimately
you're
going to do to you?
smarter, was it?
I mean, you are smarter because you know more, but are you smarter because it's useless information?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
So it's almost like you kind of wasted brain power in a way.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Like, think about how many people obsess over UFOs and aliens and stuff, right?
oh, it's crazy.
That stuff's
Oh my
great.
god.
Like, that stuff's, same thing. Like, it's one of those conspiracies where you know that there's more to that. Like, ever since, Roswell and all these other events where you have like these spacecrafts and stuff, or these like, unidentified objects, which they were at the time, but you know that it's either coming from our government or other governments where they have access to this technology or they made the technology, whatever it is, right? But again, you go from that to there's all these aliens and they live out in space and they're on this star system, that system, and this is what they look like and this is what they sound like, and you create all this stuff. It's like at the end of the day, what does it matter? It's not
Doesn't.
affecting your everyday life. And there's a chance that you might go your whole life, die, and still never actually know the truth, just remembered a bunch of stuff that you read, and then you're gone. society goes on, and we still have no aliens. So it's like,
Exactly.
why waste your time? Why waste your
If,
whole life on that thing?
if you have an interest in it, that's fantastic. But don't let it consume your life.
That's the key
Be
word, consume.
interested. And if it happens, then fantastic. Guess what? Oh my God, the mothership's coming and I get to be here. But don't obsess about it. If the mothership never comes, live your life. It is what it is, you know?
Yeah. Next one is gingerbread, gingerbread cookies, gingerbread men, things like that. So the original recipe for gingerbread uh, apparently goes back to ancient Greece, 2400 BC. So that's 2400 years before Christ. Thousands of years before even Jesus, ancient Greeks used to bake and eat gingerbread. So it's been a thing that we've been doing in, world civilization since almost the beginning. I mean, really, really long time ago. But the actual cookies and things like that apparently go back to the medieval era, the 1500s, when I believe it was the Germans, but I could be wrong, started making them into, cookies and treats and things like that. So that's where that comes from. Now we have decorating Christmas trees, which again is another big thing that people talk about it on the internet as a pagan idol worship thing, but there are elements of it that go back to Germany in the 1600s, where they used to actually put fruits and nuts on trees outside. And I believe when they would fall to the ground or something, it would signify that spring was coming, and it would just be sort of like a tradition that they would do to welcome in the new season. But then eventually in the 1800s, well, before that, they started bringing them indoors and putting the trees up in their homes and decorating them with the same thing, fruits and nuts and things like that, to continue that tradition of the seasons changing. But in the 1800s, the first actual ornaments were manufactured. They were little glass balls. That's where the glass balls come from. And they were done specifically for decorating a tree. So essentially, actual ornaments that were manufactured for trees date back to the 1800s. And the first ones were really glass balls. So a lot of people have those on their trees today as filler ornaments, and then they have a whole bunch of other ornaments that are more personalized, like pictures of their family or whatever. But the first ornaments were pretty much just glass balls. Next thing is the Nutcracker. Well, the Nutcracker is a huge part of Christmas tradition as well, especially in Europe. And it is something that the actual Nutcracker tool was apparently invented in the third or fourth century AD for, using it to actually crack open nuts. But then later on, the figures that look like soldiers or kings or whatever that are hand carved, usually from wood and painted, those were around the 16 to 1700s in Germany. They started making these like decorative figurines that were also practical because they would use them to actually crack open nuts. So if you've ever seen the Nutcracker, you see that it has that little lever in the back and the mouth opens and then the mouth closes when you press the lever down. Probably not as much today because they're, a lot of things are mass produced and manufactured. But back in the day, they used to make them from wood, hand carved, and they were practical. You could actually use them to crack open nuts. You'd put the nut in the mouth of the Nutcracker and press the lever down, and it would crack the nut open. And nuts were a really big snack that people would eat all throughout history. I don't think people do as much anymore because things are really mass produced and manufactured. You probably eat like maybe like trail mix or something, but people used to crack open. I remember when I was growing up, we used to, you know, get, for the holiday season, we would get like a bag of walnuts that were still in the shell, or a bag of almonds or something, or the mix with all the different nuts. And we would, hand crack them all open one by one and eat them. And it was cool because it felt like, something that really wasn't done much anymore. So it sort of felt like a throwback to, you know, back in the day, um, and it sort of fit in with the holiday season. But they actually used to, crack the nuts open and, use the little Nutcracker doll to do that. So that was kind of cool. And then the actual Nutcracker story. So eventually, folklore and stuff became, created out of that. And it was a story called The Nutcracker and the Mouse King, was written and published in 1816. And then later out of that, 1892, you had the Russian ballet, The Nutcracker, which still runs today. It's still a very big, you know, uh, art form, I guess, artwork where people go and see the Nutcracker, the ballet, in the theaters. Another one is eggnog. So this is a cool one. Originally, it was called, I guess, posset, Posset. What it was essentially warm milk that was mixed with wine. So that was pretty much what they were doing back then because, those days, this goes back, I don't even know how long ago, but ancient times. They used to just take milk because we've had milk since the beginning of time and wine. We've had that. One of the earliest alcoholic beverages we've ever had is wine. I think it might be the first. And they just used to add it to warm milk that they would, boil on in a pot or something. And that's how eggnog originally was invented in this precursor called posset. But then later on, monks, I think, started adding eggs to it to thicken it up and give it a more of a custard feel. And that's where it gets the name egg from, because they would actually add eggs to it. All right, everybody, I just want to take a moment to promote my children's book. This is Little Boy Full of Love. That's me on the back. And this is a little sneak peek on the inside. It's a great book. It's a children's book. I actually wrote this for my son, and it's available right now on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, Bookshop.org, and a lot of other online platforms. But more importantly to me, it's actually available in a lot of bookstores throughout the country. You can find out which ones are closest to you on my Instagram page. We highly recommend that you shop local, buy from a local bookstore. So if you are looking to, get a children's book for you or anybody you know, or even with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to, buy a children's book as a gift. Definitely get it from a bookstore that's local to you. But if you absolutely can't get it from one of the bookstores that are currently carrying it right now, and we're in about 15 or 16 different states across the country, so it may actually be in your state, and it could even be local to you. But if you can't get it from the physical bookstore, check out our Amazon storefront. The book's available on there right now. And like I said, with the holidays coming up, you may want to do your Christmas or Hanukkah or holiday shopping early, and you can even order it from our Amazon storefront and ship it directly to whoever you're gifting it to. But it's available on those platforms, Amazon storefront and bookstores and other websites that I mentioned. But I want to take a moment here to look at the storefront just to give you an idea of some other stuff that we have available on there. These are products that we highly recommend. They are things that we use in our daily lives, and it's all organized by category. So it's a lot easier to, shop for the holidays and specifically for things that interest you, particular categories. Available right now, many different items on our storefront. If you can see here, 61 items just in women's apparel, fall decor, because right now we're in fall, 26 items, kitchen items, baking specifically, things for around the house, children's toys, even stuff for parties. If you're trying to save money on a party and throwing your own, occasion, you can even buy some cool gadgets here to help you, put on a better party. Health and wellness items here, even stuff for Christmas. And there's the book right there. So you can get it from the storefront. You can get it from the bookstores, like I mentioned. But it's available on all these different platforms. It's really easy to find and gift to somebody. Also, I want to show you the apparel shop, and these are some clothing items that we actually produced. So if you're looking to get some cool apparel items, shirts, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, leggings, even accessories, cell phone cases, women's makeup bags, fanny packs, coffee mugs, all different types of stuff, even some, art, all different categories here, apparel, homeware, accessories, drinks, even digital items. It's all on this store. healthybodygoodssoul.com. Anything that pertains to you or somebody that you're looking to get a gift for the holidays. A lot of great designs on here, a lot of cool designs that we actually custom created. Stainless steel water bottles, especially now with the fall and winter. A lot of cool hoodies and long sleeve shirts. This is a really cool one, I think, for women. The original Be Your Soul apparel, that one's actually really popular. People tend to like that. This one's one of my favorites. The free shirt. It's the American flag and it says free and that says not property of the United States government. That one's pretty cool. Got all different types of tank tops, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, tote bags, coffee mugs, even some items for kids, backpacks. So if you're the type that likes to, plan ahead, I would definitely recommend ordering from the Amazon storefront or the apparel shop within the next couple of weeks to get everything in time for the holidays. Use code SAVE15 on the apparel shop to save 15% off everything on the storefront. So order within the next week or two and you'll definitely have everything in time for the holidays. Definitely check out all the links to everything, the Amazon storefront, the book, and the apparel shop in my bio on all my platforms, Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. But you can also find them in all the show notes for every episode that I post and get all your orders in time for the holidays. All right, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It helps the channel continue to grow. And put in the comments things that you would like me to talk about and make videos on for the future. And I will definitely do my best to do that. Stay tuned for the next one.